So I'll try not to make it too specific to games. What I'm going to talk about is team building. I'll talk a little bit about why I think I know anything about it, and then talk about success for teams, how to build good teams. I initially gave a different version of this talk to a bunch of game studio heads, and so I've tried to adapt it, but I'm hoping that you guys will be interested to see what we do when we make hiring decisions for small teams and game development studios. A little bit about how awards work, and a little bit about how firing people works, and then critical positions in game development and how you manage critical positions on your teams. So a lot of the stuff he sort of already said. We've been around for about 16 years now. Since Sweeney founded the company as Parents' Basement, I talked to somebody who's all excited to start a game development shop in their parents' basement. It totally works. Just is kind of rare to work, but when it does, it works really well. So we've been around for a while now. We've grown pretty rapidly lately, turning into a two-team game company. We're best known for, I guess, Gears of War now, because that was a pretty large success and had a lot of critical success and also sold a few. And the next one is coming out November 7th. I hope it does pretty well. We'll see. The Unreal Engine, as I mentioned, it's been lauded as a good game engine, but most importantly, there's hundreds of teams using it. So if you played Splinter Cell or Bioshock or Mass Effect or Medal of Honor or any of that stuff, they all are using our engine technology these days. Even Mortal Kombat, sports games, stuff like that, use our base engine technology and run with it. So we solve a lot of problems very differently than most game studios. I'm an engineer by trade and then an academic, but now I'm an engineer again. Our founder is an engineer. A lot of our lead designers are engineers. And so we put all that together, we're a company of engineers making a video game. So we have smart designers making them fun, but we're also building a set of tools that's been half of our success, is making really good tool systems to then provide those to other studios. It keeps us honest. You know, we have to write documentation. Oh my God, right? Well, we do, because someone's going to be reading it and hopefully spend lots of time on it. Alrighty, so I'm not a leadership expert by any means. The reason I got into leading was because it pissed me off when things didn't go the way I wanted it to. I think my first leadership roles were at UNC, and then later at MIT, I was mad because the students weren't organizing. And I wanted a freaking union in the computer graphics department. I'm a rabble rouser, and you will hopefully determine that by the end of this talk. So basically, anything inefficient, or anything I think is inefficient, or basically anything that's not done the way I want to do it, pisses me off. And so then I got there and said, I'll do this, and all you need is a lazy leader, and you're set. Because they say, oh yeah, please. And at that point, you've taken over, right? So I'm going to talk about stuff like that. But first, I guess I should do my quickie show a video of, this is the commercial we did for Gears of War, the first version. It's just 60 seconds long. It'll give you kind of an idea of what the games look like nowadays. You see that at all? So it's a depressing so that was Mad World. It kind of gives you an idea of sort of, at least I hope, the artistry of the franchise. Every bit of that's run real time off of an Xbox 360. We don't do super cool cinematics where we have a 500-man team with giant Linux servers or whatever. We do everything in the game, so the game looks like this and your game like this. So anyway, that's sort of what Gears of War is an action game on Xbox 360. Okay, so I'm not a leadership expert. A little bit about my background. I was very well socialized in the American educational system, and I learned a little bit about teams there. I learned a lot about teams as a grad student, because that's one of those places that it's really hard to get anything done without having 2 or 3 other students working with you. You all probably know that. America's Army was my first game project, and that was sort of weird because I was doing CNN interviews and I had 30 million downloads in a month of my first game project. So that was really, really exciting, but kind of strange. We built this game team within a naval base, and so we'd walk past people in uniform with dudes with green dyed hair and t-shirts and flip-flops, and we had a number of culture clash problems. So that project came out pretty well and was considered a success by the Army, and they're still funding new versions of it. I moved out to Raleigh. Epic made an offer I couldn't refuse, which is come start a new company for us and take over the Unreal franchise. And I'm a total Unreal fanboy. I was like, what a great opportunity. So I came out and built up another team from scratch. Luckily, this team I was able to advertise for. When I was with America's Army, I couldn't advertise at all because I couldn't tell anybody what we were doing because it was a secret. It was a little easier with this one, saying, hey, we're Epic's new daughter company. We want to make Unreal games. Well, that worked pretty well. And I built a pretty solid team there, and we ended up merging that company with Epic in 2004. Basically, Epic had been a long-time jazz band. It was guys who'd been working together in the basements, eating ramen noodles, and then found a lot of success, but didn't have a lot of structure or organization. My company was sort of the opposite. We had a lot of very experienced guys who worked at multiple studios, averaged 5 to 6 titles shipped. None of them at Epic. Whereas the Epic guys had pretty much only worked at Epic their whole lives. So we brought a lot of experience and a management structure. So we put the two companies together, and my management team took over the combined company. Tim Sweeney, founder, still runs the shop, but I run all of the staff and all the game projects, and my management team took over the structure. So it was kind of a combination of their IP and talent and that stuff. So that's basically all I've got. I've been there for a while, and I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. Okay. So the end goal of having a good team is pretty simple. You want these things called team dynamics. You want to have a good culture, which is kind of bullshit. What you really want to have is people work harder than normal, right? That's the first thing. It's like if I just don't do anything, they'll work X. But if I put together team dynamics and culture, maybe they'll work 2X. And that's a success from a leadership standpoint. Come on, you know it's true. And the other thing is you want them to be working on the same thing. So if you can get everybody working harder than normal and having them all working on the same thing at once, you totally win. And that's all I'm going to talk about, is how to get people focused with a unified goal. I'm not going to talk to you about how to get people working on the right thing. That's an incredibly hard problem. Deciding what games should we make, who knows, right? But I can tell you how to get them all, I hope, excited and moving in the same direction. Okay, so these are the two things that we're looking for. Unity of purpose. Everybody's on the same page, and they're willing to sacrifice for that purpose because they believe in it. Right? This is the total difference between two class projects, right? The one where you're making a game, you're staying up till 3 in the morning, and you're forgetting to play. Jedi Knight just came out, but you don't have time to play it because you're working on your game because you're so excited about it. And then there's the one where you say shit and you spend 3 hours on our algorithms homework, let's get it done, and move on and do something more fun. Right? All I hope been in both of those situations. And the one where everybody is really excited about it is where it ends. This doesn't mean sacrifice your family or sacrifice any other things. The game industry is notorious for people sacrificing their family and personal lives. It happens a lot. When it happens at Epic, it's because, I hope, everybody wants to do something more. You know, we're looking at the calendar, there's a month left, and we really want to get in this cool feature. Co-op was a big feature in Gears of War 1, and it was on the chopping block. And I was telling the guys we got 4 more days. And they made it happen because they really, really wanted co-op in there. Not because I want to sell another 8%, but because they thought it was cool and it should be in there and we put the work in. And that's passion and unity of purpose, right? So instead of telling people sacrifice their family, what we see is when you have this unity of purpose and you have this willingness to sacrifice for that, you get rid of the bullshit. I'm going to use a lot of those kind of words. You can keep it all you want back there on the camera. I apologize to people in the suits, but that's going to sit right back there. Military experience. So first of all, getting rid of these enjoyable inefficiencies. Squabble. Engineers, this may surprise you, love to argue about stupid stuff. Is this the right way to do it? Well, theoretically, it seems that you could. We all know, we've been there, right? Little kid falls into the ice, into the freezing river. Nobody argues about how thick the ice was or whether it made sense for her to have dropped in the first place or which of the people should go. Someone takes off their clothes and jumps in, right? And when you're all worried about shipping a game, that stuff just goes away. Right? So if you can get that focus on unity of purpose, people stop worrying about these things. They stop getting mad about failures, right? Because intolerance for failure is when I heard so-and-so did this and it really screwed up. You have to be able to fail. That's a big part of making products, is going too far, finding out how far you can get and pulling back from it. And people getting mad at each other for failing is the kind of stuff you don't do because you don't have time for it, because you're too busy, because you're trying to make co-op fit in and you've only got 4 days or your lead boss is going to cut it. Territorial behavior is one of my very favorite engineering things. Not admitted here syndrome. Whoa, I wrote the networking code. I don't want anybody touching this, but I'm going away for a week. When I get back, nobody better touch this. I've heard those phrases before. You know, when it's 4 in the morning and you're exhausted and you know you have to sleep and it's got to ship in a day, you're not thinking, but this is mine. You're thinking, God, would you please take it, right? It becomes a group effort because it has to be, because you don't have time to think about this job. I'll be back. This river is my river to dive in. So don't just leave her there in the water. I'll come back tomorrow. That doesn't happen, right? Web browsing, research projects that aren't really research projects. Maybe some of you know what that's about. And then tasks that look like progress. This is probably the thing that kills productivity most in engineering companies, or at least in game companies, is we're going to refactor the AI system because I think we can get a 17% improvement, and it's only going to take a week, and then it goes straight downhill. And what have you really done? You're not helping ship the game. And so we have a real bad case of ship-itis at Epic, which is, how is this going to help me ship? Is it really going to help me ship? I totally agree. Our AI pathing system could get replaced in a heartbeat. There's a lot of things you could do. Is it going to make yours go too ship faster? Really? No? Then let's probably not do it. It's not worth it. So this stuff all kind of falls away. Also playing games during lunch. Unless you have to work at a game company. I have a few secrets to being a good leader. You don't have to be perfect, because luckily no one is perfect, so they're not expecting you to be perfect. Most of the time they're expecting you to be perfect, but they're okay, and they'll rationalize it and realize it's okay sometimes for you not to be perfect. You just have to earn the trust and have them support your decisions when you're making those decisions. It's okay to screw up. Because remember, you're not perfect, and they're not expecting you to be perfect. The trick is to do it with confidence. When you make a bad decision, at Epic I have a favorite saying. When we say we are absolutely for sure shipping Gears of War holiday 2005, we're going to make it happen. We ended up shipping 2006. Well, so you make that kind of commitment in the company meeting, everybody's on board, and then 2 months later you realize this is absolutely nuts. There's no way we can do it. You walk in and say, the cool thing about being at Epic is we are an agile company who's able to make decisions very quickly. And when we see the market isn't right or whatever, we make the right decision again. So we do it with panache. If you want to blame your screw-ups on me, I don't care. I blame my screw-ups on other people all the time. You can blame your screw-ups on your middleware. Unreal Engine sucks. You know, that's the reason our game didn't ship on time. I don't care. But it's okay to screw up, and you just have to do it with confidence and say, we've got a new plan. Here's why it's better. Let's roll. So far, this has worked. Okay, I'm going to dig into hiring a bit. I won't go too far down, and I'd like to leave some time for questions at the end. So I'm not an artist. This was my master's thesis at UNC, actually. What you don't know is this is a graphical application, and we used a collaborative software bus to take an application that was never networked, hooked in a few places, and networked it together with another completely separate application in 2 different operating systems and 2 different languages. You know, so this cool multi-language software bus. All right, so it was fun, but that was my art. Rock, right? But I know how to hire artists who are really, really good. So I'm going to focus on that part. Very briefly, this is kind of the way Epic goes through it. I'll post these slides, so you know, you guys, I know you're furiously taking notes. You can skip that. But we do go through a skills test. We read every resume we get. Our hiring ratio is about, what is that, 0.016%? Is that 600? Yeah, 1 in 600, something like that, resumes we hire, so that's pretty rough, but we do actually hire people at a rate of about 1.5 a month. We go through this process, but the skills test is a really important part. People should be telling you this, because they don't. Nobody tells you to make sure you spell check your resumes, but please God do, because if you make mistakes like this, I assume you don't talk to your friends, you didn't bother showing this to your mentor or your mom or somebody. But more importantly, not just spell checking, but also your portfolio should get that same kind of thing. I don't know if we've got any artists or design students, but I'm betting there's a couple in here, because there's an awesome school for that here. So when I get a resume portfolio with 10 pieces in it, if there's one bad one, we seriously think about rejecting it, even if the 9 are awesome, because it's told me 2 things. One, I don't know what's good or not, so I'm going to count on you to figure it out for me. That's what art directors don't want. They want everything they get to be great. And then the second thing is, again, this is a person who never bothered asking anybody. You know, do you think this is cool? You have to do that. You have to ask your peers, work with your mentors. I'm looking for team players, and those are the kind of people who run their portfolio past 100 people before they're ready to submit it to somebody like Epic, right? So if you don't do that, then we notice a real problem on day 1. We also look for people crediting. If you didn't do the texture, you better say it. If you work on a programming game project, you better credit your guys, because I'm hiring people who are really excited about having worked with 2 people on this project. Not the ones who say, I worked on this project, but the ones who are crediting well, because, well, it's an important part of the industry. It's really small. The biggest thing that we look for at Epic, besides smart and get stuff done, those are important, obviously. You don't hire people who aren't smart and don't get stuff done, is passion. And that's a really hard thing to identify, so we look for it in proven ways. Great interviews don't really show passion very well, or they can, but it's not sufficient. So I'm looking for what game projects are they working on at a game company, right? I want to see that, well, I have a game project, I'm taking Mike Young's class and I'm doing this, but I'm also working in my spare time on some crazy DS project or an XNA project or whatever, showing me that you're doing more. I've had NC State students apply to me who never bothered to take any of the game classes or work on any game projects, and we throw them away. I mean, that's ridiculous. You were here for 4 years. You probably want to do that before you say, I've wanted to be in games my entire life, but I never had time to take any game classes, but I swear I'm really passionate about your industry. No, SAS rejected you, right? So please don't. Okay, so we look for this kind of stuff, the extracurricular activities. It's easy to get into a game class, or it should be, so we look for even more than that. We look for the extracurriculars, the mod you did. We love that kind of stuff because it proves you can deliver projects yourself. I love when I get someone who's got a mod and it's been well downloaded and people like it, and they went through another version and updated things and made it better. That's just perfect for us. Okay. We make everybody take a skills test at Epic, and you guys should be really prepared for this. For artists, programmers, doesn't matter. We're going to make you take direction. We're going to tell you you messed something up. Even if your art test is awesome, we'll make you take direction and see if you can handle it. I've had people take our programming test and yell at us because they didn't like the question and stomp out of the room. We decided not to hire that person. And I hate to draw a trend here, but I'm looking for people who are willing to take tests. We get folks who don't want to take a test. I graduated #1 in my class. I shouldn't have to take your programming test. And those are the same guys. Or I was the lead programmer on Halo. I shouldn't have to take your test. People like that aren't going to do the crap work. And game development and most software engineering projects are a lot about crap work, right? Not everybody writes the cool, sexy renderer. A lot of people try to make that stupid rendering API work with the terrain system or the I/O system or whatever else. So we look for people who are willing to work. Wow. We should do a whole raise your hand if you've got an open seat next to you thing again, because we've got some sort of overflow problem. Looks like, well, I wouldn't count each of those hands as an open seat, but we got a couple down here. There's certainly room down here too. Okay. I think I can skip some of the interview stuff. When we do an on-site interview, once people get here, we know that they're good. They've already passed the SMART test, and so we're just looking to see if they fit in well and if they have the passion, because remember what I'm looking for making a good team is people who are willing to sacrifice a little bit of those inefficiencies in order to focus on a project. So I'm looking for that kind of passion and the people who aren't going to bail on us midway through the project, or even worse, the people who are jerks, the ones you don't want to be on an elevator with, because the easiest way to bust up your team is to put people on the team that make other people mad. And we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about removing people from teams. This is the other thing we look for and try to avoid. I can't tell you how many people think they've played 3 games so they should get to be a game designer. It just doesn't quite work that way. I want to be lead programmer. Just earn your chops. Okay, so when we have interviews, we find these nice and friendly people. We look for people who are respectful of what you've done. It really sucks to have people come interview and not know what games we've made. It's okay if you don't like our kinds of games. We get into that. We have World of Warcraft players who don't play shooters at Epic. It's totally cool. Those guys are a little weird, but as long as they know how to manage the addiction, it's okay. I think they're a protected class now from an HR perspective. Anyway, and people are excited to work there. It's so much more fun to have someone come in and say, I'm such a fan, I love the stuff here, everybody here is awesome, I'd really love the chance to work with these guys, versus someone who comes in acting cool and says, well, you know, I interviewed at Valve, and this is okay. I don't want that guy, because I want to hire people who love the idea of working at Epic. People excited about Raleigh and all the freaking trees, right? I mean, some people love that. If you want the rave scene, it's not so good, but where the trees are awesome. If you want to buy a house, it's a great place to live, right? And so we want people who are excited about it, not willing to do it. You should always express that one, sorry, that last bullet is wanting to learn from the team. That's sort of the magic words I listen for in every interview, which I way should not be saying on the internet. But like, I'm the last guy to interview anyone who comes in the door. And once they get to me, everyone's pretty much said this one's good. And I'm looking for that. God, I kept meeting people who I was like, I could sit next to this guy and learn for 3 months, because you can. He's that good, and he wants to be able to learn from you too. So if you can say that and mean it, then it goes a long way. Okay, because we want everybody to feel lucky to be here. And the hard part about this means you have to get rid of really smart, things done people who don't pass all those tests before. The hardest thing I do is go tell Tim Sweeney, yes, I know he's brilliant, yes, I know he really impressed you, but he's kind of a jerk. And that's really hard to do, to tell someone that we can't hire this brilliant guy who's going to make us lots of money because he's going to ruin your team. Because teams it's a subjective, fuzzy thing, right? I'm talking to a bunch of engineers about human psychology here. Okay, but the point is, this is that fuzzy thing that's really important that I can't put a dollar value on, but I know it's what's better about Epic than some other places, and I know it's better about what Epic is now than what it used to be, and it's not because we've hired smarter people, although we've hired some darn good ones, it's because they're working together more efficiently. So it's totally okay someday when you're making hiring decisions, you're going to piss off somebody because you didn't hire the brilliant lead programmer. Blame it on Mike. I saw this talk back when I was an undergrad, and I swear I'm doing the right thing. It's totally cool. Do this. Okay. Other hiring tips. The games industry is tiny, 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 and the reason is that there are 3 platforms that pretty much all games ship on. If you count Microsoft as a platform. All right, so 4, Windows then, fine. Windows, Xbox, PlayStation, and Wii is pretty much everything, right? Or at least Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony. So we can get in touch with any developer in the world through 2 degrees of separation. But it's a lot closer than that. For all the money that comes in the games industry lately, it's a very, very small industry, so it's a really bad idea to upset anyone. You hear a million times, don't burn bridges and stuff like that. If you want to be in games, boy howdy is that important, because I know 70 or 80 game studio heads, and there's probably only 150 in the US. So you don't want to do that kind of stuff. Be really careful when you're interviewing. Don't try to play companies off on each other, because we'll just call them up. Did you offer so-and-so a job? Really? Good for you. Okay, click. My mom gave me that piece of advice long ago. You can only screw up so many times before people write you off. So you want to be really, really careful and only use those chances when you do it by mistake. You don't want to screw up on purpose because you think you're being clever, because that's a really bad idea. You only get so many throws like that. So anyway, small industry. Make my mom happy. All right, so environment is important. I was in Moscow not too long ago doing a talk, very different than this talk. This is the Gulag Museum here. The Gulag, the famous Soviet prison. This is a bad environment for Mark Jacobs. And this is just my statement of making good environments is extremely important. PeopleWare is a great book for this. There's lots of studies on this. Believe them. You want to put people in an environment that really works. And we try really hard to make our teams have good environments. One of the best teams we've had was the Unreal Tournament 2004 project, which was 10 guys in a bullpen. We don't normally do that, but we did it. And because it was weird and felt special and made those guys feel like they had a task and a sense of purpose shared together, it was really successful. Then everybody went back to their quiet offices with nice dividers and a window and all those things that people need in order to be productive. So whatever you can do to use your environment to foster collaboration and make a team is really powerful. We're building a new building at Epic with about 70% more capacity than we need, partially because we expect to grow some, and partially because I want to be able to say, this is your normal office, this is your team office. Everybody go and sit in your team office 2 weeks. Project Low Life 2, Wrath of Project Low Life, you guys get together and do this. So it's really nice to be able to tap into that. At Epic, we're a couple different kinds of teams. We've got 2 to 3 game teams at any given time, and then the engine team. So like the Gears of War team, the project team, might be as many as 80 people, generally around 40 or so working on a project like that. Evenly mixed between level designers building the worlds, coders building the code, and then the artists building the models and animation, that sort of thing. And then we've got an engine team that works on core technology and supports all of our external engine clients as well as our internal teams. So it's kind of structured like that. I just realized I should probably inform everybody how we do things. And we have a lead for each of those teams. So we try to get the benefit of having an art team. And that art team, the way that we drive them for passion is not just making games, but competitive, because artists are really competitive. They are egoists. I love artists. I have a lot of great friends who are artists, but the artists are sort of egotistical. They want to show themselves most of the time. So we take advantage of that. We have meetings twice a week where they get up and show what they did, and nobody wants to get up there and say, I didn't really get much done, or here's what I did. I kind of textured this arm. That doesn't fly in the art meeting. They all go, like that, right? If you do something cool, they clap. They're like, that is badass, that's awesome. People were like sandbag for a week or two, putting in just one arm and then the other arm, then bam! And it was like, wow, that's incredible. And that's great because it gives these artists these mini milestones to compete with each other for the common good, right? That's what they're competing on. They're giving each other feedback and trying to get the game better. So even though they're not thinking, how is this going to play, they're thinking of doing something that gives them that purpose and passion towards getting our product shipped. And each of the teams does that, whether it's code reviews for the coders or Scrum or whatever else we do in order to get teams feeling like each of these little subgroups is a team. And then we do cross-disciplinary teams where we have 2 artists, a level designer, a programmer working on optimization strategies for tools or whatever it is. We're constantly building ad hoc teams in our structure in order to take advantage of, is it the Humphrey effect? Parkinson, anybody know? The one where you change stuff and it's really good for a little while, you get a little efficiency out of that. So we just do it all the time. We constantly change stuff in an interesting and neat way, measure that, and then move on, go to another team. Everybody gets really dizzy. So rewarding performance is one of the things that we have a lot of problems with in our industry. Unfortunately, not most companies are profitable and most rewards come as profit. I won't talk much about other kinds of rewards, but in my experience, people were really good at doing what you reward them for. My favorite example of this is infinite defect methodology. I'm not sure if you've heard of this. Joel Spolsky has a great article on the Microsoft Word team where you were rewarded for function point speed, how quickly you got a function point done, and for finding bugs, and for fixing bugs. Those were the 3 things you were measured on for capability. So a really enterprising programmer who was supposed to write the how tall is this line function wrote return 10. Okay, so we got that function done like that. And then he posted a bug like that. And then he fixed it within like an hour, which is how long it should have taken in the first place. Woohoo, 3 points for me today. And so you're encouraging people to do things stupid by rewarding them for that. It's really hard, but we try not to reward people for fixing bugs, because how do you count bug priority and importance and difficulty? You don't. I have guys who spend 3 weeks fixing a bug that's a memory leak they can't chase down, and people who fix 100 a day fixing collision. Boy, gosh, I don't want to reward the guy who's doing the easy stuff. I want to reward the guy who spent 3 weeks banging his head against the wall solving a problem. Also, doing things that are noticed is a real problem for reward systems. Not at my studio, but I knew a studio where the manager would casually come in around 12:30 on Sunday every Sunday, just to see who was working. And so just about 12:15, his employees would casually come into the office, right? And you can totally take advantage of that. And so we've tried to create, at least on our site, a review system that brings in more peers and folks to try to get away from being able to play the system of doing noticeable, high-priority, high-profile work and being noticed for it. How are we doing? 40 minutes. All right. So we have a performance review process that I'm really not going to dig into here because y'all aren't all studio heads trying to do performance reviews. But basically, I think coming up with a system that brings in peers, real review points. Here we do attention to detail, work ethic, communication skills. Each one of those categories is rated equally in our review system. And at the end of the day, that goes directly into determining merit-based bonuses at Epic. So communication is 25% of your merit rewards as a programmer, which is, you know, kind of surprising, I guess, for some studios. Okay. We do a lot of feedback and blah, 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 and I'm going to skip all that. So firing people is a really fun topic, so I'll go ahead and dig into that. These aren't always good, and I've only had to do it a few times, and I really hate it. But it's really important to maintaining a good team, is pulling people out of teams that aren't working. This is the biggest lesson I learn as a manager every time I have someone who's not working well, is that it drags down people next to you. I've seen it happen at bad studios where I have a really talented, strong guy I know of who's working in a studio, and next to them someone's playing WoW during the day and just having a blast and not doing anything. And they complain about it and nothing happens, right? You know, oh, well, you know, I hate to deal with hard situations as a manager, so I'm going to let it go for another month and see how, right? It happens all the time, and what it does is your team immediately loses all faith in the management. But the worst thing that can happen is you can destroy that person's will to work for a long time. I've seen folks who go from really strong workers to who gives a shit, they don't care anyway. This guy's playing WoW and he's getting paid the same as I am. And getting back to that point of being passionate and caring a lot about the product and willing to work the extra hours and that stuff is really hard. I've seen people not be able to do it because you just get into this rut. And you know, hopefully you don't know too many people like that, but it happens. You see someone who's just a superstar who just kind of loses their steam. And the way it happens most often is because they think nobody cares that they were working so hard. So as a manager, most important thing you can do is fire bad people or not hire bad people as opposed to hiring good people. Because they'll kind of work together and do cool stuff, but if you put someone bad in, you'll break all your good ones. Okay, that was kind of depressing. Okay, I try not to fire people on a whim, but I try to make it really clear as soon as we know about poor performance, we do something about it right away, make sure that they know that it's happening, and we communicate really well with the rest of the staff about it. Most often we task switch, and that can play wonders. Humphrey effect, or whichever one it was again, give someone a new role, tell them you're really watching them this time, give them a chance. And I've had a success rate that's pretty high. Let's see. You guys don't care about how that works because you're not here. All right, so I've had about a 60% success rate turning people around, but I always feel so much better after it's done, whether it's firing them or making them good again. Some of my top employees, I had top 10 guys who were people that we turned around from just being total wrecks. Sadly, 2 of them World of Warcraft addicts. So thanks a lot, Blizzard. Good friend of mine's a creative director there, and I send him a letter every now and then when that happens. As a team leader, whether it's a class project or whatever else, if there's a way to work around the bad people, try to work with them, try to turn them around, give them some other option, but then get them the heck out and get them away from your good people. Okay. I tell everybody right away, no one should be surprised by this. And it's really important for us when we do something like this, because it scares everybody. I fire one guy and everybody's like, is this the wave of firings I've always been worried about? I have people worried we're doing layoffs. And it's like, we're kind of successful this year, but they get worried anyway because people worry about stuff. Anytime I call someone to my office, they're scared and they do this. What is it? What did I do? Right? It's kind of depressing in a way because I was hoping they'd enjoy visiting, but I'm the principal at my company, so they're scared it's this. And so all you can do is reassure everyone in your company that when you do something like that, when you pull a trigger, no one should really be that surprised. It should be more like, well, I was hoping you'd do something about it, and they need to know that you gave this guy a lot of chances, that you did your best with them, because you don't want anyone thinking you capriciously fire, because that can do the exact opposite of what you're trying to do, which is convince them you care about good performance. Okay, so at Epic, one of our big problems is the hit by a bus. And I mentioned this before. This is like the way I will leave Epic is if I'm hit by a bus. And so when you're building your teams, you need to be aware of the fact that people get hit by buses. It's not always World of Warcraft. I'm tired of trashing on those guys. They might have a baby, they might have mono, but something's going to happen, and you need to be ready for that. So a big part of what I do at Epic is constantly work through our teams, finding our sensitivities to people getting hit by a bus, and then looking for ways around it. So I know exactly who. Here's my algorithm. Take the critical position, make it more bust-proof, and then repeat. So I know exactly who replaces me, and they know exactly how to pick up all the tasks that I have. I'm sure if I had a heart attack, Rod would be here in 10 minutes finishing the talk for me, and everything would go on, and it'd be great. You wouldn't notice it at all. The posters around the building would change, everything. So be careful, by the way, because now when you talk about hit by a bus protection, it's kind of funny, and then, yeah, someone actually gets hit by a bus, and then you're like a psycho. Okay. So the way we promote at Epic is really, really, really annoying to everyone except for me and the team. So what we do is we put people who are leads. All right, so we talked about the bad thing. How do I make new leads? That's what I do for the bus stuff, right? All right. Is we give someone all of the responsibility with no authority. This is really painful if you don't have communication skills or charisma. If we say, all right, go figure it out, get it done, but you're not the manager or anything, some people will embrace that challenge, and they will convince people, wheedle them, bribe them, buy them beer, whatever they have to do in order to get it shipped. And other people will retreat and feel uncomfortable and not want the job and not know why it wasn't clear enough what they were supposed to be doing and what exactly their boundaries were, and those people will make terrible leaders. We have a saying called the manager stick. Every now and then you have to pull it out and say, because I'm your boss. But every time you do it, you break that stick in half, and pretty soon you don't have a stick anymore. So you have to be able to manage people without using your stick. And so that's the way we create managers. So we put someone in a role where they just have more responsibility. Hey, by the way, can you knock out a schedule for the effects budget? Huh? Okay. And either they embrace that and they start talking to other guys and build that budget, or they get frustrated. By the time that we're ready to make a promotion at Epic, everybody thought they were already the lead. I just promoted a lead animator who had been making schedules for 6 or 9 months, and everybody just, wasn't he lead animator? Nope, sure wasn't. It's just we were making him do all the work. So there was no contention, and not getting paid for it. So nobody was like, but I wanted to be lead animator. I don't understand. That's not fair. None of that stuff happens because you've kind of gone through this process where they become accepted as a leader among peers. So it's really mean to our leads, and it's probably not something that works very well in a large corporation that has different government rules and stuff. But at our place, this works really well. And then you have to make yourself replaceable as a team leader. This is maybe not as applicable to student projects, but for long-term projects it is. You need to think about what happens when you get a crazy project that you have to take care of and someone else needs to step in for you, or it's mono, or Wrath of the Lich King comes out and you need to level to 80 as fast as humanly possible, or whatever, for example. So you need to have somebody who can step in behind you. Because generally, as a leader, your job is not to make yourself look good, it's to make a team that's going to deliver some project and do a great job of it. It's not to keep yourself as team leader. And so not everyone appreciates this, unfortunately, but if you can do it, if you can build yourself a situation where you've got your next guy who's following you, especially once you make corporate world, you don't get promoted if they have no idea who they're going to replace you with, right? You know, well, but Mike, he's the only guy who can even do the network core system. Nobody could do that. You're right, we should get someone from outside to take that lead position. So half your job is to make sure you're not the critical point of failure on something really boring, right? So that you can be promoted. And also, if you're ever going to leave, it's really, really way better to not be the only guy who knows the critical networking core system before you take that awesome job at Epic and leave the place that you are now. And you never know when those opportunities are going to happen. You never know when there's going to be a promotion job open up. Remember, the bus. It could come any time and take out that boss of yours that you've been, all right, no, you didn't do it, but somebody did it. Somebody hit your boss with a bus and there's a promotion opportunity, or Epic comes out of the blue and offers you a great job based on the way you laughed at Mike's jokes at that presentation he gave back at NC State, whatever. And if you don't have someone who can step in and take over for you, you've got a real problem. So this is a responsibility you have to your organization, first and foremost, and secondarily to yourself. Okay. There's really no trick to it, unfortunately, because there's so many conditions that have to happen for a team to get together. For the coders, it's necessary conditions, but there's no sufficient conditions. There's no one thing that you can say, well, if there's a window in the office, they will gel, and it will be a good team. But if you do enough, and you experiment with lots of little teams, you kind of learn. At least you build this tool chest that you can deal with. So I think that's mostly what we've been able to do at Epic, is by building enough teams that have failed catastrophically and have done quite well, we sort of learned some things to do and not to do, and ways to respond when something goes wrong. Learning from other people's teams is way easier. Read a lot of books. Here's a couple examples of some great things that are more software focused for teams. Again, it's all going to be posted online, so I'm going to scoot on to my conclusion, which is, at least in our industry, and I think in a lot of professional services industries where it's smart folks making a product, success comes from that motivation. You can have a team just come together magically, but it's way more likely to happen if you spend a lot of time building a culture that encourages teams to get together. So hire good people, reward them well, get rid of the wrong people as fast as you possibly can, make sure you don't have any critical points of failure, and that's it. Then you make a video game and make $1 billion. Okay, that's it. Questions? Okay, well, you can clap first, and then we'll do questions. Thanks very much. Okay, so I think I've got 10-ish minutes for questions, and then at which point that the security kicks you out, I'll be happy to answer more questions in the hallway. So anybody have questions about stuff? Yeah, in the green.
How do you handle situations where you go to employees to get status reports and whatnot, and you say, kind of just, what are you doing, what have you been doing, and what you can say, well, what are you doing, what have you been doing? And if you're the boss, you oftentimes can't say, you might be working on third replacement, or you're about to fire somebody.
Okay, so I guess there's two issues. One is that, you know, what do you do when you ask someone for status and they don't give it to you? I mean, there has to be an obvious reason why it's important. At Epic, we have a huge reason why it's important, which is it's how we communicate cross teams. Everyone sends a mail every day, preferably with a screenshot of what they did from the day before. And also, it's the way we catch rogue processes, so to speak, which is, hey man, it'd be cool if we had ladders. Oh, that's a great idea. Well, I could animate something. Okay, I'll start on that now. And 4 days go by, and suddenly you've wasted 4 days on something that was never in the schedule. But we get the first day, and we catch it at working on ladder animations. And then Cliffy freaks out and says, ladder animations? And so we catch it. So that's why status mails are important at Epic. So we don't hover over people. We just get an email every day. And so we've got a really good explanation for why it must be done. And the other is that in your work ethic scores, if you can't get your status done, then it comes into bonus determination. That helps. All right, so the second question was, what is it that you're doing? That's tough because to me, that's just a lack of trust and, or lack of respect for the leader, right? am I doing the right thing for Epic by being here instead of back at the office where everybody's crunching trying to ship Gears of War 2? It's a tough call. Luckily, my PR guys made that decision, so I didn't have to. But I'm sure those engineers saying, where the hell's Mike? And if you do enough of that, you're going to start losing the respect of those guys, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me as someone who just doesn't have a respect for what it is that you're doing. Maybe it's lunch and you explain more of what you do or something like that. I don't know. It generally takes about 10 minutes of me saying what I do on a day-to-day basis before I bore someone to tears and make them realize they never want my job and that kind of stuff. So that's all I can think of. Yeah.
In addition to programming or graphic capability, what other skills can be helpful in such a
Computer, as a programmer, you mean?
as working with game development in general?
Well, I mean, it's so different for a good artist and a good programmer. For a good programmer, it's math, physics, matrix algebra, stuff like that. Basically, what you can get from a really solid four-year university like University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. or Duke, sorry, or NC State. I'm just kidding, my dad's a state guy. So a real solid background, very important for a programmer. For anything else, to me, it's what did you do? You know, it's not I make great art, and I got it into a game. I decided to go ahead and learn the tools, and I decided to go ahead and get it into a source engine mod, and I decided, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's proving it to me, I think, is the most important thing you can show. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay, cool. Yeah, over here.
Can you talk about your development methodology and how it affects your teams?
You mean like engineering scheduling methodology, waterfall versus Scrum, that kind of stuff? Gotcha. Well, it's very different on our game teams, and our game teams are highly iterative with a mile-posted schedule, where at each point we'll look and say, here's what's left to design, here's what's left to build, are we doing the right thing? But we basically schedule that out from the beginning, and then are completely willing to have a list of 10 weapons, and then a month later say, actually, we need 8, and 3 of them go, and this one's cool, and that sort of stuff. So a lot of flexibility, but we try to stay on a general track. For the engine team, it's more agile. To be honest, we changed what we were doing. We didn't change what we were doing, but we started calling it Agile so people wouldn't get upset when we changed what we wanted to do every week. Because, you know, we have 1,000 outstanding feature requests for hundreds of Unreal Engine teams, and when we do something that fits one guy versus another, they might get upset. And it was really, really hard for us to schedule 6 months out in advance and then have the game team need something that we didn't know about. So instead, we schedule a month out now, and it looks like Scrum or Agile, but really it's just us not planning more than a month ahead. So it puts a nice name on it, but we do a Scrum where we stand up and we have a Scrum Master, but we don't do project backlogs and things like that, so we kind of adapt Scrum. Yeah.
How about the role of democracy in choosing, say, the feature set for a game, and how it cuts across perhaps teams and management?
Gotcha. Well, so for feature set, from a gameplay perspective, everybody play tests. Everybody wins. You know, the system administrator says, man, it'd be really cool if you had these points that you had to hold in a multiplayer mode and somebody runs with it and it's cool. It doesn't matter, it wasn't Cliff's idea. It's not a democratic decision process. Our leads make a decision about major features, and if they can't agree, then I'm the 51st vote on the Senate and make a decision, but most of the time they agree. For the engine, it's a really complex process because we have so many external teams. We poll people from all our licensee companies. We talk to our marketing guys, you know, what's the next big thing? How do we beat our competitors? We look at what's possible, and we put all that together and build a massive list, and then cut off a month of work and do that, and then do it again every month. So it's a really complex but exciting maximization function of what's the right thing to code this month. Yeah?
How often are people able to work up through the company, or how easy or hard is it for somebody to start, you know, at the low end and work their way through the company?
Well, I mean, the cool thing about Epic is that our hierarchy has 3 steps. There's everybody, and then the leads, and then me and Tim. So there's not really, it's a bad place to go if you're trying to work your way up the corporate ladder. We hire lead designers, and they come in and work as not lead designers for us because we didn't have a spot open. So in the game industry in general, though, I think there's a great deal of opportunity for that. A lot of great producers, who are the guys who manage projects, start and test, show themselves to be really diligent, work their way up to lead tester, switch over to associate producer, and work their way up to producer. Some of the best producer designers in our industry started as testers. So it's very, very common for that to happen, because game industry is really insular, because we get so many resumes. We really, because everybody wants to be in games. You know, 70% of undergrads say in computer science say they want to be in games someday, and they all send a resume, right? So we optimize for rejection, not for acceptance, which kind of sucks, sorry. And so for interns, once you're in the door, then you're that guy we know, and he's cool, and he's way safer than some random person sending us resumes or whatever. So once you're in the door into a game company, you're good. We've only hired like 4 interns ever, and all of them are full-time employees at Epic now with regular positions. So once you can get in, you're good. Keep shooting. Yeah, over here.
Sort of a hypothetical situation. Say 3 days before you actually have to ship Gears of War 4, there's a bug.
Dude, I just shipped the second one.
The
All right.
weapon system that the starting weapon is just way too good.
Okay.
And it kind of creates a bad balance, but the game's still playable. Would you delay all the shipping, or would you just ship the game and sort of deal with it later via patch? I'd like an idea of the methodology you would use in that.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, it's a whole different world in console and PC, right? PC time to ship to getting a patch out to everybody is, a day if you want it to be. For console, you're looking at weeks of lead time in testing and propagation on Live or PlayStation Network. For network bugs that are network only, we would totally just patch it, because everyone on Xbox, for example, they force patches to you. And so if you're networked, you have to get the patch. So if it's a bug in networking, well, no big deal, right? We'll just push it down to everybody, and they won't even know that there was a problem. If it's a single-player bug, like there's no one can get past the first level, yeah, you have to hold it. We have blockers all the time. That's just what happens. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks. We've had it happen before. We think we're all done, and then we go back from cert, something happens, we find out that day, and we're 24 hours a day till we get it back in. So, yeah. Do bugs come through that we didn't know? Yeah, we had 5 million playtesters for Gears of War 1, and we had about 120 testers for 6 months before we released it. So yeah, of course, stuff comes up all the time we didn't know about. But if you do have enough of that stuff, you can't sell games, right? So you have to care. Yeah.
If you've got a small number of artists on your team, and artist competition starts to go bad, what are some other outlets that make you feel good about what you're doing?
Artist competition go bad?
Yeah, one or two.
Oh, you can't do it, you're saying. So how else do you keep them motivated? It depends on the person, right? I mean, that's the thing I'm looking for any hire is what's that passion hook? I was mentioning to some guys earlier, I have an animator who doesn't play games, but he loves realistic animations that look really good for weird creatures. And you can only do that in like 2 places. Well, okay, I guess you could do Japanimation too, but that's not exactly what he wants. He wants 3D. So it's us in the movie industry. And in the movie industry, you might be doing Buzz Lightyear's wings and nothing else for a year and a half. Whereas in the game industry, you'll get to do 7 cool creatures all by yourself. So we tap into that passion for him, which is you get to make cool creatures, and you want it to be better, and can you make it crazier, and we challenge them. I mean, that's really all you can do. For a small team, though, you've got so many wins there if you've got people who all care about games, because you can put all 8 of your guys into one room and have them all talk about the design and be totally invested throughout the whole project. Whereas we can't put all of our artists on Gears of War 2 in a room even them, it's too big for our conference room to talk about the design. They just have to be divorced from the design process. So my favorite team size is 10 to 12, because everybody in there, it's one thread, right? If you have 12 people in a room, you can maintain one conversational thread. And when you can do that, you can do really, really cool stuff. I'd rather have 12 than 15 on a project. Yeah. Curses, okay. Programmer motivation. Perfectionism is a big part of being a programmer, so tapping into that where we can, but it's really dangerous. That quality and attention to detail grade that I mentioned before is working smart and making good trade-offs, not being a perfectionist. And it's really hard to manage programmers for that perspective. Most of our guys love a research challenge, and they even love it as an option as the sorbet between courses. So they'll say, listen, Friday you can go do that crazy SIGGRAPH paper you wanted to play with, but we've really got to knock out the I/O stuff now. I mean, we have such a big project backlog, as I was saying before. There's so many things we need to do that we'd love to do. There's always something that people want to do. And we try to assign people to tasks that they're good at, that need to be done, and that they want to do. And when we hit that together, then they've got a sense of purpose. I know why this has to be done, because it's important, and it's something I want to do. And most of the time, we have enough programmers and enough tasks that we can work it out, that we don't have too much junk unpleasantries someone has to do to make it happen until the very end of the project. And then we race our fancy cars, and we do mini golf tournaments and whatever else you can do, right? I mean, keep the team together from a morale perspective, and that'll get through a lot of things. Beer is good. Good. Thanks, guys.